Hello friends, loyal listeners, and bears everywhere. Welcome to the new episode of The Sound Bearier. That's right, the official podcast of Northeast State Community College. Today our co-hosts April Allen and Matt Poole are talking to Mr. Kenneth Knight of the Counseling Services Department here at Northeast State. Difficult times we live in today, friends, for a couple of years. Difficult times for all of us. April and Matt and Kenneth are going to talk about services available for students and staff and faculty here at Northeast State as we all try to transverse a very brave new world. Give it a listen. And if you need help, don't be afraid to reach out. For now, let's go with the episode. Thank you to Kenneth and to all our loyal listeners. This is the Sound Bearier.
Kenneth Knight, welcome to the Sound Bearier. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So you are actually the peer recovery coach for the college.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to be diving into a whole lot of topics, not just related to you, but to our students as well, and some of the things that you can offer them. So I'm curious, ultimately, what is your background and what really led you to this position today?
Well, I have a background in drug abuse, alcoholism, mental illness problems. Myself, I'm in recovery going on almost 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah,
good for you.
Thank you, April. I appreciate it. Yeah, I started at a very, very young age, and I got myself into a lot of trouble, made a lot of bad decisions, especially in high school, leading up into college. And that actually continued into my 20s. I got sober for a few years, did really well, and then I started having mental illness problems. And that was a whole different animal to tackle. So that lasted until I was about 36. But once I got sober and took charge of my life, started making good decisions, and got involved with recovery efforts. I worked with a therapist. She suggested I get involved with NAMI. I did In Your Own Voice with NAMI, also peer-to-peer wellness. And I just wanted to do more, so I started working in the field for the Fairfield CSB. Fairfax Falls Church CSB. And they're outside of Washington, D.C. They ran a 24-hour emergency crisis center where I started doing peer work. So that's pretty much how I got into this line of work.
That's awesome. You're using what once was your downfall and using it to uplift others and get them back on track. Absolutely.
It's, if what I went through doesn't help somebody else, then there was no use of me going through it.
True. Awesome. Well, Kenneth, we'd like to start with some questions geared to college students since, it's our line of work. What issues have you encountered that college students are struggling with today?
I would say basically there's a lot of issues around legalization of marijuana right now. It's becoming a really hot, debated topic. I know for myself that, mixed with mental health issues, that it never helped me. There are, there are dispensaries telling people to stop taking psychiatric medications and use marijuana. And the interesting thing is that none of the marijuana they're offering has any kind of clinical work done on it. They're made in people's backyards, basements. There's no quality control over them. And a lot of marijuana products are being laced with fentanyl, and they're actually causing overdoses. So it's gotten extremely dangerous, and it's a heavily debated topic right now. And I'm definitely on the side of erring on caution and staying sober. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's, even though there may be claims of regulation, there really just isn't as far as these substances go.
Yeah, it's the marijuana industry is spending a lot of money promoting their product and in an effort to reduce harm. And you see if there's reduced harm, then you have increased use. A lot of deaths have been attributed to fentanyl overdoses in marijuana and even just overdoses with high content THC. The stuff I used as a kid was, very low concentrate of THC, and back then it was just weed, and it was a much, I wouldn't say safer, but it did not have the debilitating effects that the new stuff has. THC contents have gotten up to about 90% in some products. And first-time users are trying this. So there's no longer this natural progression. Like I started with marijuana, and then I, got into some harder stuff. Started with alcohol and then marijuana. And But now these, younger generation now is trying some of the hardest drugs you can try for the first time. It's extremely dangerous, and I'm really passionate about this, effort to educate our youth, and especially even our students here coming out of high school. They have, their brains are still developing, and I feel it's, my duty to educate people to the dangers of it.
Yeah, because early use will have a lot of times long-term effects on people, just not only for their brain, but for their, I guess the word I'm trying to say is their behaviors towards these substances. They're more likely to abuse them later in life if they start from an earlier age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. The brain becomes conditioned to release dopamine and serotonin, and then eventually our brain stops doing that naturally, and we look, to try harder things, and it just becomes a vicious cycle.
So, what was the hardest part for you in becoming sober?
It was personal responsibility. It was me putting my finger on the problem and saying, I can take care of this, and I'm the only one who can take care of this. I describe it like this. If you imagine a dartboard, say you want to hit a 10, it's round, there's all these numbers. Say you want to hit it. So you have a few darts, and eventually you hit it, or you hit that balloon at the fair, and you win a prize. But with me and, my primed brain for alcoholism and drug addiction, that dartboard is spinning in a circle. So now the target's moving. And take it one step further, and now it's rolling across the room. So it was just, a lot of people say, they should just figure it out. Just do this. Well, they don't understand that it's just extremely more complex to put your finger on it. Because I heard those things my whole life. Just, get a job, go to work, figure it out, do the right thing. But it really is more complicated. And then that's what people who don't understand alcoholism and drug addiction, they don't understand that aspect of it unless you live it. And that's why as a peer I understand that when I work with people. So, and they know, they can feel, I know I've been there. And that's where the empathy comes from for people who are struggling.
Right.
So in your experience, what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about a person who has an addiction?
I would say, I believe that what we portray, what we see of people, as a society, I think we just forget about them. And we don't realize that, here's Kenneth Knight sitting in Poncast in one of the most amazing studios in northeastern Tennessee doing a podcast about drug addiction and alcoholism and, a recovery program. But at one time, he was homeless, wandering the streets, completely insane, no money, no friends, no family, nothing, locked up in jail, bouncing in and out of jail. So what I try to tell people is that you have no idea what that person's capable of. And that's kind of like the sad part of it. We're kind of, it's okay for, 200,000 people to die in this country a year between overdoses and alcohol. But, there's really, we just don't care because we say, they chose that. And it's just a lot more complicated than that.
100%. It is a lot more complicated than that. And I feel like the issues are pretty oversimplified in a lot of ways and in the view of multiple people who don't truly understand the nature of addiction. And so when talking about like opiates and opioids, we've got synthetic, semi-synthetic, and natural. So can you describe to us, because we hear the word fentanyl a lot in the news. And so what exactly is fentanyl, and why is it showing up as a leading cause of death in our country?
Well, the biggest, reason it's showing up as a leading cause of death is, first of all, fentanyl is 1,000 times as strong as morphine. Carfentanil, which is a spin-off of fentanyl, is 10,000 times as strong as fentanyl. If you look at a penny and you see the nose of Abraham Lincoln, if you were to cover that with fentanyl, that is a lethal dose.
Wow.
That small amount is enough to kill a person.
Wow.
And drug cartels have started producing imitation, Adderall, other stimulants, Oxycontin, And inside of these, it's said that 1 out of 4 of these pills has enough fentanyl to kill a person. And this is a new epidemic that we're getting into.
So sad. Wow. And my question is, where is the awareness about this?
It basically boils down to the recovery community and, how much we speak up and we speak out. This generation of kids between, 12 and 21 or 25, they have been fed a huge lie about their safety.
Mm-hmm.
I think about, I'm as scared today of a black widow spider as I ever was. But it seems like the fear of potentially dangerous things has gone down by popularity.
Yep.
Just because it's popular to make a stupid video and get 1,000 likes.
Yep.
And it's
Very true.
really, really sad. And this is kind of my personal war I'm waging, about, kind of our mentality. It just seems like as a society, we have lost our collective mind with what we think is acceptable. And I have a 10-year-old nephew, and I will fight to the death to protect him.
Speaking of being acceptable, not just drugs, fentanyl and those types of drugs, but why is alcohol so socially acceptable as a drug?
We legalized it.
Yeah.
It's a legal drug, and the thing about, I know from my own experience with alcohol, is that a normal person, I'm going to say normal, and that's a broad, I understand that's a broad painting with broad strokes there, but say a normal person takes a drink of alcohol or has 2 drinks and they start to feel a little out of control. They don't like that out of control feeling and they stop. An addicted person will start to feel out of control and it's like a light bulb switches on and it's party time. It's time to go. So that's the difference as far as like the mindset. I'll only speak for myself, but that's what I experienced.
So you would say, in a sense, individuals who, whenever they have a couple drinks, a lot of people, they are able to say, that's enough, or, I don't really like how I'm feeling right now, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this, or maybe not partake in it as much. But for some people who have difficulty with alcohol, once they have a drink or 2, it's not enough. It's, no, let's keep going.
Absolutely.
Until, they are either completely intoxicated or black out, for lack of better terms. And that cycle just kind of perpetuates because it's so rewarding to them, but ultimately in the long term, it's damaging overall.
It boils down to the reward center of the brain. That reward center, it feels good. So, hey, if I have a few more drinks, it's going to feel even better. Without, taking the consequences of their actions into account, killing somebody while driving or killing yourself by accident. It's, there's an endless list of bad things that can happen.
So along with addiction, mental health is a challenge as well that goes along with addiction, but not just addiction. People who don't have addictions can have mental health challenges as well. Would you say that those battles are won on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. It's one of the best things I learned. I started going to AA when I was 21, and I sat down with some really wise people. One of them told me that we really only ever live one day. So if I can get till bedtime without making any major mistakes, then I can do this for the rest of my life.
Sounds like good advice.
Do you think that older adults, like late 30s, 40s, and 50s, are more prone to addiction than younger individuals? Or how do you see, addiction as it spans across the lifespan?
I don't really see any difference in age. I would measure it probably by vulnerability. Where is the person living? What are their major influences? Are there parents in the home who are using and who approve of using? So it boils down a lot to environment. Some people, I know people who have come from, leave it to beaver type situations and have become full-blown addicts or alcoholics. So I can't figure it out. I just know that environment plays a huge factor. Parents are our largest influence. So if it's in the home, if it's in their attitudes, we're just going to, by osmosis, absorb that. And, when that harm reduction we're just going to see it their way, and it's not a big deal, and oh, it's just weed, and as long as you control it and go to work, it's okay, and it's really not.
Right, because once you take that first step, it's easier to take the next step and the next step, and then you're in too deep and don't know how to get out.
Absolutely. And that's why this recovery program on campus is so important, because I want students to know that they have a place to go, that they have somebody who is behind them, who will fight for, their future. We are here to provide our students with an education so they can go out into the world and get a job to put food on their table and take care of their families. Now, for instance, if we don't teach them that it's not right to do drugs and then go to work, you could be over at, a large chemical company, miss an alarm, there's an explosion, and now you've killed 20 people just because you made a bad choice.
Yeah, good point. Bringing it back to helping our students here, what kind of issues were students and clients talking about before COVID, and how have they changed since COVID?
Well, I think before COVID, we were in the middle of an opioid epidemic. That seemed like the biggest thing. It was everywhere, and it hasn't gotten better. It's actually gotten worse since COVID started. From 2020 to 2021, I think there was a 30% increase in opioid deaths in the United States. I think that's what the CDC says. 30% in 1 year. So as far as, sounding the alarm bell, I'm swinging pretty hard.
What were they also talking about as far as like pressures? Do you think the pressures were increased because of COVID?
I think the isolation of COVID and being stuck at home, and a lot of times, going to school for kids or going to college is their escape from their home. They don't have a sober place to go. Maybe the parents are using, or relatives that they're living with are using. So school can be a safe place for them to go, spend time. That's why I'd love to see more areas on the campus that are student-friendly where they can do their homework. Recovery corners at C2311, just a calm, quiet room where you can come, sit, grab a cup of coffee, talk to some people, and just, relax and stay in a nice, safe environment.
And can you repeat that location for our listeners?
Yeah, it's in the General Studies building. It's room C2311.
And what are the hours that is open?
Let me see if I can remember them all. Monday, 9 to 12, and then 1 to 3. Tuesday, 9 to 12, and then 1 to 3. Thursday is the same, and on Thursday we're doing a stressorcise workout in the gym for students and staff, whoever would like to come. And that will be 4 to 5:30.
Now, can anybody come to the recovery room, or is it students just struggling?
No, absolutely. Okay. I encourage everybody to come because, if staff are there, it's a way for, students to see staff as just human beings. And a lot of times, they'll hear that, an instructor has been through, a tough situation, and this is what they did. So really, it's just about, building community here on the campus.
I love it.
Kenneth, how do you see right now the climate, just the country in general? Have you seen a shift, or has it more so stayed the same as far as individuals seeking mental health treatment or support? Have you seen there be a shift, or has things stayed the same? Do you see that there's still a stigma with seeking mental health treatment in the world today?
I think there'll always be some sort of negative stigma because you can't change anyone. But I think as a society and as a world, I think our consciousness is waking up to the possibilities that there are answers to these things. This drug and alcohol addiction thing has, since man has first crushed grapes, we've been dealing with this issue. But, there's many new therapies, new techniques, and education. And basically it's just passing that torch of hope, letting a person know that they can get better. That's the most important thing. And just believing, I believe that somebody can get better because everybody had written me off. So I know one person said one sentence to me, and that was a person of authority. They said, the only difference between you and I are the choices we've made in our lives. And that one sentence changed the entire trajectory of my life.
That's so phenomenal. It is. I do hope that we continue this push of letting individuals know that there are people out there so willing to help them in whatever treatment they decide to seek, whether that be addiction, mental health in general. I hope we continue this push to let people know that not only is it, I don't want to use the word normal, but it's common that individuals, especially in today's time, are having difficulties with their mental health. And it is completely okay to ask for help. There is no judgment, especially on the individuals who are providing that mental health treatment to, because they want to give you support. And that's exactly what we're here with you today, is because you emphasize that you truly desire and want to help people, because not only have you been there, but you've lived it, you've experienced it, and ultimately you're here to provide support for our students and help them see that they can get through this.
Absolutely.
And I love that we have this here, because our students do need this. And I don't think that we realize just how much they need it. And I encourage our listeners, if you're struggling with any kind of addiction, please visit Kenneth, visit the counseling services. That's why they're here. They're here to help you, not to criticize you, not to judge you, not to reprimand you for your choices, but to guide you to make better choices. And Kenneth is living proof that you can do it. So if Kenneth can do it, believe that you can do it, because you can. And we believe that you can do it as well. And that's why we're hosting this podcast today, because we want to get this awareness out that there is help out there for you. And it's right here on this campus.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So, Kenneth, I do want to ask you, because I do know that you have a wealth of knowledge. So I want to
Stop.
Ask
You flatter me.
I do want to ask your opinion, because a lot of times there's this question of, nature or nurture. Is our behavior or addiction, is that a result of environmental factors or genetics, or is it a little bit of both? So what's your take on the whole nature, nurture, genetic or environmental take on addiction?
I know for myself that, I was exposed to alcohol probably prenatal. We know that anything a mother takes is going into her child. And if that's not the case, and, maybe one spouse is drinking a lot. So that weighs on a child's psyche. Like I said before, I've known people who they say, I had an ideal childhood with plenty of love and support and everything you could possibly want, and they still turned into an addict or an alcoholic, which is just baffling. So I don't think that debate is going away. I know that education is so important right now. I highly recommend a documentary by the name of Chronic State. You can find it on YouTube, but that is kind of eye-opening as to what this legalization debate has turned into. But the nature nurture, and then you have some people who say, oh, it's just a choice. And like I said, it's more complicated than that. So I would say 6 in one, half dozen in the other. I don't know. We'll probably never know. But I know one thing. If I don't pick up the first drink or drug, I'm not going to get high or stoned. So
Very true. So would you say that stress levels play a part in starting the steps to addiction?
absolutely. Stress can cause it. Loneliness can cause it. I know for myself, it was a traumatic event when I was 10 years old. And after that, I really stopped caring about anything. And, but I was drinking before then. I was a blackout drunk by the time I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So was that nature? And was that, nurture or nature? I don't know. I just, from 3 years old, I had the thought of drinking. So I know I was born to be an alcoholic. I don't know about other people.
So how would you encourage our listeners to take better steps to handle their stress levels without resulting into drugs or alcohol?
It's about activities and how you spend your time. There are a million good ways to, take care of mental health. You can do therapy, you can do meditation, you can exercise, you can read, and the list just goes on and on. You can get into sports, you can, get into book clubs. And I think surrounding yourself with positive people who are making good choices is probably the most important, especially for our students, because it's about peer pressure. It's still about peer pressure in college. So surrounding yourself with the right people, I think, is the best number one step, because those other people are going to get into positive things, and they'll be like, oh, well, hey, why don't we do this, instead of making a bad choice.
Yeah, because they say you are who your friends are.
You are judged by the company that you surround yourself with.
So what do you do for your stress? How do you handle your stress?
Exercise. Over the holidays, I kind of slacked off and packed on a few pounds, but I love to exercise. I was an athlete as a kid. Getting outside, getting into nature, going for walks, going for hikes, fishing, golf, and, making meetings. I go to AA meetings. I'll go to NA meetings occasionally. I go to Celebrate Recovery, go to church. Anything I can do to spend my time with positive people is what I like to do, especially my wife. She's been my champion, and she has stood by me through, let's say, the hells of fire. I mean, the fire of hell. So she has walked through flames for me. So
That's awesome.
So, Kenneth, if you don't care, again, can you let our listeners know where exactly they can find you and what your hours are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the General Studies building on main campus in room C2311. My office hours Monday are 9 to 12, and then 1 to 3 Tuesday, the same hours, and Thursday 9 to 12 and 1 to 3, and then we have a stress exercise in the gym, the Wellmont Center gym, from 4 till 5:30, and that's for students and staff. And definitely get on the treadmill, get on an elliptical, lift some weights, and just spend some time with some community. So
Love it.
Lots of opportunities. Awesome. Well, before we end this podcast, which I have thoroughly enjoyed, it's been really heavy, but it's necessary. And we appreciate you taking the time to share your story.
My pleasure.
I know it's probably not easy, but I appreciate you being vulnerable and willing to do that for our listeners. But I like to ask one random question to our guests before we close. So if you were to ever run for president, what would your campaign slogan be?
Success for only a few means failure for all.
Wow, that was quick.
It was.
Are you thinking about running for president?
I think that's what I heard.
I'd vote for you.
I appreciate that, but you are one of the few who would, so I don't think I have any chance at that. But
So
thank
why
you.
why that slogan?
It's just something that, God put on my heart, I guess maybe a year back, and it just kind of repeated itself to me. In my opinion, we have enough resources on this planet to make everybody comfortable. And it doesn't seem fair that only a few enjoy most of the wealth.
Yeah.
And there are millions of children who will go to bed tonight hungry and cold. So, success for only a few means failure for all. I mean, we're going to be judged as a society. Sweden looks at our addiction rates or drug usage rates or kids in Colorado, and they just shake their heads. Switzerland has, I don't understand they have a smaller population, but they have 1 to 3%, and Colorado has close to 20.
Wow.
Alarming statistics, and, our children are suffering the worst.
Very thought-provoking. Thank you again so much, Kenneth, for joining us today, for sharing your story and your wisdom and your insights. Thank you for joining us, listeners, as we interviewed Kenneth and got to know him a little better. If you need help, please contact the counseling services. Their email is counseling@northeaststate.edu, or you can visit the webpage at www.northeaststate.edu/counseling to learn more. Also, remember, all contacts are 100% confidential. We also want to thank our entertainment technology and our Department of Community Relations and Marketing for their work on the Sound Bearier. Please visit our podcast website and give us a listen. And please visit our website at northeaststate.edu. That was northeaststate.edu to learn more about Northeast State Community College. If you would like to reach Kenneth personally, You can contact him via his email at kmknight, KNIGHT, at northeaststate.edu. Thanks again, listeners. We'll be with you next time.